healing the world, one open heart. Every voice, a story told, through the new, through the old, bound by love, the ties that bind. In every struggle, hope will find. Discuss the pain, reflect the fire, transform the dark, lift each heart higher. Courage to converse, a bridge to start, healing the world, one open heart. One open heart. So speak your truth and light the way. Through darkest nights we'll find the day. Courage to converse until we're free. A better world for you and me. In shadows deep where silence grows, a spark ignites, a courage shows. We break the chains, the walls we climb. Together we can redefine. Voices rising, hearts awake, through every bone.
Welcome to Courage to Converse, where we discuss tough topics, reflect on personal experiences, and explore paths for growth and understanding. Before we dive in, I want to acknowledge that some conversations may touch on sensitive or challenging issues. This podcast is not intended as a substitute for professional advice or support. If you or someone you know is struggling, resources are available to help. In the U.S., you can call or text 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, or text HOME to for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, or text HOME to 741741 to reach the crisis text line. Remember, our goal here is to spark meaningful conversations while fostering respect, understanding, and personal growth. So let's get started.
All right. How's everybody doing tonight?
Good evening. Good evening.
Let me fix this camera. Looks like it stopped working. We're trying a couple things here, making sure that this is going to work for us. Multi-stream to Facebook and YouTube at the same time, because the first stream we had a little bit more feedback and a little more um, action on Facebook. So we're going to do that and see how it goes. So give me 1 second while I fix these cameras. So tonight, you want to talk about our topic a little bit, Jojo, while I got this going?
So we're going to talk about kids, children. Are they spoiled or are they shaped? Are we the reason kids are the way they are? So, for one of the things for me on the psychology side, it's one of those. It's been going on ever since the thought of psychology. Is it nature or nurture? Is it the environment that we're raising our children in? Is it in their nature because of genetics that we pass on to them?
Right. So I don't know if anybody knows how these topics come up, but most of them come up with conversations that we have, in person and things like that. And over the past several years, myself, I'll debate and argue with my kids. I'm like, I don't understand kids these days. As parents and things like that, we sit there and we're like, kids these days just don't understand. We used to have to walk to school and all these things, and I wish LA was here because she had a good feedback to this topic. Like, unfortunately, she's out of town, but you know, we'll get to that in a little bit. But we'll make sure everybody can see us. It looks like the live's going. Looks like we're live platforms, which is good. All right. So, first thing we're going to be talking about is as parents, have we overcompensated in what we're doing for our kids and with our kids, or are we doing things the right way? The song at the end of today's podcast it's one of my favorite ones that we've created so far. It has a lot of catchy tunes, but it has a lot of meaning to it as well. Not that the other ones don't, but this one's, plays a little bit extra for me. I like it a lot. Have we given our kids too many freedoms, too much leniency? You know, have we not given them enough? Right. This is kind of a self-evaluation conversation as well. Um, with the social medias, the Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, like all these things, you know, what type of role is that playing in our kids? Are we being too nice to them? Or are we not being nice enough? Or are we being too intrusive? Are we not intrusive enough? Those are the types of conversations that we're going to have tonight. Um, so at any time, if anybody has any comments or questions or anything, if you're watching on YouTube, you can go on YouTube and put your questions in there, and we can bring them up on the screen for everybody to see, and we'll answer them live. If you're on Facebook, go ahead and put your comments or questions, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. Unfortunately, right now we can't bring those up on the screen just yet because I don't have that set up. But maybe if this works well, we'll go ahead and do that with both platforms.
Right.
So, um, first thing we're going to get into is, you know, I heard this growing up, oh, your music and things like that, the generational differences that we have, between the baby boomers and Gen X and Gen Z and all that, like that plays a role into it. Um, but comparing to kind of our strict upbringings, so we thought we're strict, compared to today, what do you see in the comparison between the two?
Well, like I remember with my grandparents and my parents, theirs was very, very, the delineation was really vast. Like, there were huge differences to them. And, like, you look at, well, Elvis with his music, right? He's shaking his pelvis and all this stuff. To them, they were shocked.
Right,
My kids can't watch that. They can't go to his concerts.
right.
You look at the things that our children are watching today.
Whew.
Oh,
The WAP. Anybody
yeah,
want to
exactly.
listen to the WAP? Should we put it on? Let's
Exactly.
not.
But I will preface one thing. Like, I do not have my own children. I have 4 godchildren
Hmm.
and a god granddaughter.
Hmm.
But I also have a niece who's rotten.
Right.
And my husband's young. And he's like a child to
Well,
me.
nieces and
He's like
nephews
my
are
child. Oh,
just as
yeah.
important as kids. You treat them the same, basically.
Absolutely. And I've counseled plenty of parents through challenges with their children. I've counseled children, especially in the gay community,
Hmm.
you know, especially the kids that end up on the streets because of not understanding
Right.
poor education on the parental level.
Right.
Then we bring them into Rainbow Place, sit down the whole family, and work through their challenges so that people can see eye to eye and the kids can actually stay at home
Right.
and not have to escape to the streets.
So as it plays a role in the as it seems today, parents tend to be more lenient on their kids than they used to be back in the day. Um, is that a generational thing? Do you think it's the norm, or do you think it's just depends upon where you're living in society?
I think when, like, some of the talking points that we have and stuff like that, as the generations have progressed and technology has advanced, parents have had to adapt
Right.
that way as well. And that's made some of it easier, but it's also become intrusive,
It's yeah.
because of GPSing and like the Live 360 and stuff like that. Now you know exactly where your kids are and what they're doing. And yes, it's good, but growing up, I know my parents didn't have that.
Nope.
So, and we didn't have cell phones when I was young.
Right.
So it's like the street light comes on your ass is in the house.
Yep.
If not, your ass is grounded and whooped.
Right.
You know, nowadays it's I'm gonna, shoot you a text or I'm gonna call you, get your ass home, kind of, you know what I mean?
Right.
But
And how many times have you heard, man, if my parents knew what I was doing,
mm,
like if they knew where I was, with I-360, I wouldn't be living anymore.
that's
I've
right.
had those conversations with friends and family and stuff, and it's true, but that goes kind of to the leniency thing because we have those things. Does it make us more lenient on our kids? Does it make us more protective because we can watch them, see how fast they're going now that my kids are driving? We'll watch Life 360 sometimes. Like, what the hell? Why are they going 70 miles an hour in a 50? You know what I mean? Like, knowing damn well I was doing that at that age. But it comes different when you're a parent. You know, um, so the technology is a huge influence on what's going on these days. Not only from a parenting perspective, from a child's perspective, right? They have the social media, the Instagrams, the Snapchats. Like, I hated Snapchat, because a lot of people say the kids are using it because everything disappears once you send it and all that stuff. Well, they have the same thing in Instagram apparently, where you can send it and it will disappear over time, where you can make it. Um, and the kids will tell you, no, that's not what's going on. But then you hear your kids talking about their friends, why they have Snapchat, they're doing it exactly for those reasons, and hiding things
Yeah.
um, and
But we did that too. We
true,
didn't have the technology that
right?
way.
We had handwritten letters.
Yeah,
We had the
exactly.
little things that you press the little.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. And we were sneaking out.
And we had forts and we hid things out there.
Hmm.
It wasn't just tree houses
Put
in your
things in the Walmart
backyard.
bags and bury them
Right.
underground.
Right.
I never did that, by the way.
No. Find pop up cigar boxes and empty
Yep.
them out and put all our little
My dad will
trophies
tell you
and
that
things.
I I found his porn videos uh, or magazines
Yep.
at one point, and he called me out on it, and here I am. But so we'll reel it back in a little bit there. One of the big topics here is, you know, are we confusing entitlement with empowerment? Right? In your opinion, what are the difference between entitlement and empowerment, and how does that play a role in today's conversation?
Well, the humility is definitely lacking in the younger generation and the gratitude for the things that they do have.
Hmm.
And I can see both sides of it. And the kids today resent a lot of the technology that's used against them, and that's what they feel. And I understand that some parents helicopter it though, and they go ham with it, have to know every step. You didn't, when you were younger, you didn't have that.
Right.
You didn't have the helicopter, right? And the way parents helicoptered then was to either keep you home or know exactly where you were, and then would call your friend's parents and make sure you were there and all that other stuff. That's what helicoptering was when I was growing up.
Right.
Now it's they can literally zoom into the car that you're in.
Right.
You're not where you say you are and
Right.
all this other stuff. Do you use all of that against them? You learn so many of your lessons making those mistakes.
I could tell you, I've done that. I just did it the other day with Jolie. You didn't clean out the litter box, because we got a camera to watch the. We have cats. One of them was shitting and pissing all over the carpet, trying to figure out which one it was. Well, that's how I was able to tell the Jolie I hadn't cleaned the litter box that day. She swears up and down she did, but that's kind of to the point. Self-evaluation, right? Yes, we are using it against them. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Will it make them resent us? Those are things that we play in a lot. You talked about the hovering and things like that. When I was coming up and I was living with my dad, if I went out to a friend's house, he told me to be home at a time.
Right.
Right? This is the time you're going to be home. Well, one time I called my dad, and there was no texting, there was no cell phones and all that. So I called my dad. He didn't answer. What did I do? I left a voicemail. Said I'm coming home at such and such time. He was so nonchalant about it. You know, he went up, cut my cable off up in the attic and everything. I come home, can't watch TV. And he just. So I asked him. He's like, "So you're gonna tell me when you're coming home? No, 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 no. That's not the way
Right.
this works." And today, where I see the entitlement, right? Kids, I feel these days, they have a little bit more of a entitlement where you owe them something and they're here and they can dictate what's going to happen in life, which they are responsible for life. But when they're a kid and they're living in your house and they're being raised, your mind isn't fully developed until you're 25 years old, they say.
Right.
So if you think you can make those decisions and all that, and you're going to tell your parents or do these things or a teacher or something like that, you might want to think about it a little bit, in
Hmm.
my opinion, right? But that's part of this conversation is I really wish I had a younger kid to see their perspective of this with us to talk about, you know, how do you feel about this? When your parents are saying, you know, where are you at? I see you on Live 360 and all these things, we're letting them go do whatever we want, but are we really because we're sitting there staring and watching what they're doing?
Well, think about like how embarrassing it was when mom calls your best friend's mom and is like, "Is my son there hanging out with your son?" Uh, yeah. Well, to me, that was always embarrassing
Hmm.
because I I prided myself with. I mean, I did dumb things.
Hmm.
Don't get me wrong, and I got
Anybody who
myself
says
in
they
trouble.
didn't is, I think, is
Right.
lying. But
But when I said I was going to someone's house, I didn't tell you what I was doing there,
right,
but that's where I
that's
was.
where I was. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hmm. Uh, I could say for me, the most part, it was. I mean, me and my friends, we drank a lot. Um, but and that's the other thing is I respected had more respect, I feel, than a lot of kids these days for their parents and the things that they have. The
Right.
appreciation of what they have. You know, um,
But that goes back to entitlement too.
right?
They're entitled to have all these things, with technology, and they're entitled to have these fancy phones
Because
because
everybody else
dad
does.
has one
Mm,
and all my friends have them and all
yep.
this stuff. Mm-mm. I didn't get my first cell phone, until I started working.
Look at a lot of the drama. If you talk to your kids and everything like that, look at the drama that it actually brings. It can bring good as well, but there's a lot of drama that happens on social media, Snapchat, Instagram, even YouTube. I mean, when Landon was little, I remember he was probably 10, 12 ish around that time, between right first year of middle school.
Hmm.
He was on there doing something on YouTube, and someone made a comment about autism alert, and it hurt his feelings so bad. And I'm like, this is one of the reasons I didn't. You're not ready for these things, but they want it and want it and want it. So what do? We gave in, right? And it's reluctantly, or I will never forgive myself for that because that was a hard time for him, at that time, and me watching him deal with that. Um, and it can do a negative impact on their life,
Absolutely.
especially at such a young age, you know. But you can't go back and take it back. You could only learn, right? And you have to let your kids understand that if we're going to allow these things, we make that decision. You got to understand, like, these are things we're going to have to deal with.
Hmm. And there's far more bullying on social media.
Oh my gosh, it's
People have no problem it coming out of their face through their fingers.
we have a topic
They
on that.
will not get
Keyboard warriors.
to your face. Yes, exactly. They won't tell you that stuff to your face.
Yep.
But everybody's got their beer muscles on when, it's social media, and they'll just chastise you for every little thing.
Right. So back to the hovering thing, right? Back in the day, my kids tell me that all the time. You always say back in the day, you old man. Um, you know, Parents pretty much knew who their kids were hanging out with, right? Over the past several years, I've had friends from both my kids' side of the family and we've done it as well, but I always at least try to meet and talk to the parents before I know where my kids are going. We've had people spend the night at our house, but we'd never met them before, never talked to their parents, whatever. And it, to me, it was just weird and awkward as my kids were growing older and getting to teenage years and stuff, and hanging out with friends and all that stuff. Like, who are you? Who are your parents? What do your parents do? Like, I
Yeah.
I want to know what who my kids are hanging out with, who their parents are and stuff. And it seems like a commonality. I talked to a buddy at work about this, like just because their kids came over to my house and I never met you or whatever doesn't mean I don't want to meet you. my kid's hanging out at your house all the time. Who the hell are you? You know what I
Right.
mean? So but then if you question your kids about it, it's like, well, why? Why does it matter? You know, they're my friends. I talk to them at school all the time, or I met them on Instagram, or I met them on Snapchat. Who do I know who they are? You know what I mean?
Well, you look at the adults that, you know, get in the dating scene online, and it's like, oh, we've been talking for a couple of weeks, and we're gonna meet, but I'm going to his house. No, no, meet in public.
I'll be watching you on Life 360.
Exactly, meet in a public place first. Safe and
um,
secure is the best step first.
this is a big one right here for me. Kids, even in school, are given a lot more chances. I feel than what they used to give. You know, my kids growing up, you know, they it seems like they didn't have to give forth the effort because they knew they were going to be given another chance
Right.
to retake a test,
Hmm.
right? And in my eyes, I'm like, why not try the hardest your first time, study properly, and get it done? That way, you don't have to, because then you're always trying to play catch up, and you're never where you need to be,
Hmm.
right? It's a cycle, right? So, do you feel that's a problem these days? Is kids are given too many chances, not only in school but in life? You know, I've always been a prominent consistency is key, right? When you're raising your kids, and it has to come from both sides. If you're in a married couple, you have to give the same effort and consistently. If you're working against each other, it doesn't, there's a mixed message to the kids, but if they don't take the trash out when they're supposed to, and they know it's what they're supposed to do, and then you do it for them and it's, oh, it's okay, and don't punish them, how are they supposed to get along and understand that? You know what I mean?
What are you doing for them in life?
Right. Teaching that well, and going back to the school thing, previously, even when my kids were in school, to exempt your finals, they used to be an A average. They lowered it to a B. So why do we lower the standard? You know, because it's too hard for kids and we're making life too hard for them, or we just don't want to deal with that many kids coming during. What do you think the underlying problem is, or the cause of that?
Well, even the grading system is very different from when I was going through school. What's the mark of an F or a D now? A D is still considered passing, but an F is not.
Right.
So, but if you bring it up, you know, or I mean, bring it way back, and they've got to be like in the 30s to get an F. They can get a D at 45. No,
Yeah. Lowering
no.
lowering the standard just because. Now,
But
if you're
that,
watching and you're listening, please chime in, because these are all personal opinions, right? Mm,
especially if you're a teacher, you know, I don't think the education system has got. I mean, we've made things, I think, a little more difficult with all this core system. I think some of it is just ridiculous because it's way more than is necessary. But you look at, like, Japan looks at our schools and looks at our kids like,
we're a
y'all are
joke.
on crack
Yeah,
because our kids go to school practically year round.
right.
You know,
It's mandatory to learn a second
yes,
language, like
exactly,
learn a second language, not just
and need
attend
to
the
be able to
class.
use it. Yes,
Right.
yep.
So,
Yeah, but it goes to me this with the entitlement and empowerment thing. Part of it is what we've done with kids because, and I blame this on the baby boomers, and they can hate me all they want, but we have to feel bad
mm,
because all the kids should be allowed to play, and everyone should get a trophy,
participation
and
trophy.
everybody should get a ribbon. No,
Where's the effort in that then?
so the kid that comes home every day after school, gets his homework done or her homework done, gets out there and practices her cheer routine or practices his, passing of the football and stuff like that. Then his dad comes home and throws the football with him and runs drills with him until the wee hours of the night under the lights in their yard. Both of them are exhausted. All those years of all that work, right? That child's on a championship team or a championship she's on a championship cheer team
Mm-hmm.
because of all that hard work. But the ones who are sitting on the bench,
Or picking dandelions in the
yeah,
outfield.
and they're chasing butterflies with their glove and stuff like that in baseball. I still believe to this day, if your child sucks and chooses not to put forth the effort and work for it, anything in this life is worth working for.
We got someone that's trying to join in, and let me start up Teams real quick and see if I can get this going.
And if the work and the effort is not put in there, how do you get the results? You know?
Yeah.
And how do you measure what that result is? Not everybody deserves a trophy. Not everyone deserves to get to play first string and stuff like that. If your kid sucks, you're going to sit on the bench. So maybe that should motivate you to work with your child.
Hey, how about that?
God forbid we do a little work with our kids.
Yeah.
And that's not just parents. That's friends of the parents' families and stuff like that, like me. Like, I love your kids.
Uncles,
Yeah, exactly.
all neighbors, everything. I'm gonna try to get this.
People in communities, community centers, and stuff like that. They're out and about and they're at events and stuff, and you
What
see
makes
these kids.
anybody push to do good? What makes anybody want to work harder?
Yeah, where's the motivation?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, and that's funny too, because we just had the election, right? Everybody complains and complains and complains. Well, did you vote? Do you encourage your kids to
My
vote?
vote wasn't gonna matter.
Oh yeah,
Well, it doesn't until it does.
until there's 300 million people in this country, and what was it, 178 million people voted. Okay, so explain to me where the other 120 plus million were. Did you all say, well, my vote isn't going to count? Think about that. Like, the numbers don't lie. But we don't hold the children accountable today because you can't, pop your child like this. You can't go this in the mouth.
They're gonna call
Cussing.
CPS on you.
Oh, you're beating your child in the Walmart.
Well, see, I think this is a
There's
comment.
a difference between beating them and giving them a spank, or putting soap in the mouth for cussing you out
Oh,
because
my
they
mom
didn't get
used to
their
wash my
way.
mouth with soap. We used to buy it
I
on
agree.
the dial soap, and when
Oh
there
yeah.
wasn't bar soap, it was liquid soap in my mouth. I remember one time she gave us liquid
Like
at
on detergent.
the lemon Dollar
Oh yeah.
General or Dollar Store. Ugh, it was disgusting, absolutely disgusting. Oh, I'm sorry about this. I'm sending a link.
From a generational standpoint, every generation has said, I want to do better. I want to give my children a better life than I had, right?
We overcompensate.
I believe.
Yeah.
And it's to the point now where this sense of entitlement is everywhere. You know, there was a study that was put out actually at the Louvre. For those of you who don't know what the Louvre is in Paris, so this amazing art museum, right? Schools all over the world travel to this, right? They have this whole group of kids, and they're sitting in the main rotunda, which is this ginormous pyramid, and in the very center is a fountain, and you can look at all the art. All these kids are sitting on the benches all the way around it, and every single one of them, none of them are looking at the art. They're all on their phone like this. It was one of the most heartbreaking pictures I think I've ever seen, and that's the world we live in. Like, I can even say
They're
here,
everywhere.
here, like, it fits my husband to a T because he's on his 24 hours a day.
I
When
mean,
I put mine down, I'd sit down. But we all sit in the living room and we're getting ready to watch something, and we're all like this.
yep, waiting on someone to pick a movie, waiting on the perfect moment. Or I go get something to eat. We're all guilty of it. We sit there and we do that. We do that.
It's crazy.
It's this is going to be a good conversation during the social media one. We'll get into that in a few weeks. Um, so I think you just mentioned a little bit about that. Parents wanting their kids to have a better life, right? We don't want our kids to live the life we had and all that, but I think we tend to overcompensate, right? We're giving them too much. Uh, we feel our parents were hard on us and they were assholes and all these things. Um, but
What
we,
did you learn
yeah,
in your life?
as I became an adult, yes, I think we talked about this last week.
Hmm.
I've apologized, and said I know I was being a hard ass. I was, I wanted it my way and all that, but in the end, I knew you were teaching me a lesson. You know what I mean? Um, and if deep down, I do, and that's part of the whole point of this conversation, right? Discuss, reflect, transform, right? Trying to understand as parents, as kids, as whoever, the true understanding, the empathy thing, understand where the person is at that moment in time. Um, like, we don't want our kids to live the life that we had. However, are we doing too much to make sure that they don't live the life? Hello, can you hear us? Can you hear us, Trish?
I think you're muted.
Muted. I think you're muted. We'll wait till we get her audio in. But yeah, we don't want our kid to live the life that we had, and so we give them too much or we do too much for them, because we don't want to see them fail. However, are we failing them by doing too much for them? I think that's a common thing as well.
Well, then it comes back to what I talk about all the time. These kids are going to have no idea when they have to buy the salt.
I love that statement.
They have no idea.
Now you got to buy the salt. Well, what does it mean? Well, wait and see. You hear us now?
You hear us, Trish?
You're still mute.
Can you unmute your on your end?
Yeah, I'm unmuted, so I don't
There
know
you
if you
go.
can hear me, but I was hearing you spotty.
Yeah, I hear you. We hear you.
Okay.
Thanks for joining. I'm going to go ahead and add your video to the chat here. Let's see what we got. There we go. All right. So Amanda texted me and said, Trish, get on. She has a perspective she wants to share. So what's your perspective on what we've been saying so far?
So I am not a public speaker, but I do have a degree in social work, and I am a teacher. I've been listening, and I understand I understand the whole spank your kids, and I get that. I was spanked. I was actually all of my parents were in the military. My mom, my stepdad, my real dad, my grandparent. Like I get that. I'm only in Warner Robins because of the military. But as a teacher, it's different. We can't engage the kids to do their work anymore because the Department of Education has us bound. We are bound on what we can teach and what we can say.
You're saying your hands are kind of tied with some of that.
So, like teaching Georgia history, we can only teach about slavery. We can't teach about like what happened prior. We can't teach about what happened very much after. We can't teach about, I don't know how to say it without being in public. Um, Critical race theory, because I'm big on critical race theory because I am a social worker first. I was in the Department of Juvenile Detention. Um, so I see what y'all are saying. Where like before, like yeah, my mom could backhand me and she could tell me, no, you can't do this, and I wouldn't do it. But now at this time, like day and age that we're in, like that's not the same anymore.
right? Now, your mom would, because I know
Um,
this is how it was when I was growing. My mom or whatever would tell me, "Don't do this." Sometimes do it anyways if I knew she wasn't going to know I did it. It- That
yeah,
changed. Has that changed in over time? Do you think?
yeah, social media is terrible. I just had a girl, one of my students came back today from going to a psych ward because she was sending out photos on Instagram and then she wanted to kill herself because it was to like an adult male, and now there's like a whole court case and everything, and it's like we didn't have those things going on. We didn't have all of those uh
Entrapments.
you know the temptations.
Right.
And then with my kids, because I have a ninth grader, I have a 15-year-old boy, and I have a almost 18-year-old daughter, as you know. And when I put restrictions on the phone, like for social media and stuff, it is like a whole nightmare. It's it's like the world is ending, and it turns out to be like worse on my part. But my daughter has not. She's never been out on a trip without me. She's not allowed to go do like trips with other families because I don't know those families.
Right.
I don't know anything about them.
Right.
Um, we got snowed in the other night. I talked to your wife for about an hour because like I know Ava's almost an adult, but like she's still a child,
Right.
and it's like it's hard.
Yeah,
It's
it
really
definitely is.
hard. And
It definitely is.
sorry, go
Now,
ahead.
when it comes to like the social media and you take it away and you say make your life harder, um, so what does that make you feel like when you're doing that? Do you feel like you have to give in or they're never going to shut up? Because that's kind of the pressure, right? You say it makes it worse on you, but do we
Yeah, it
take away and
does
hold that
because
restriction?
I feel like in a way like I always try to do things differently for my kids than that happen to me because I get my ass whooped up and down. And if my mom ever sees this, she will agree. Like literally until I was 19 out of her house, I would get spanked or so for my kids, I was like, I'm not going to do the same thing because I went through a divorced household and I went through my dad being gone since I was 7, and I went through all this and I went through that, and my sisters go to jail, and I've raised nephews, and so I was like, I'm not doing that to my kids, and now my kids are just spoiled assholes.
Do you feel they're spoiled assholes though?
Do what?
Do they feel that they're spoiled assholes themselves?
Oh yeah, they know they are.
They'll admit.
They know they are. Yeah, they'll admit it. They've not been spanked, um, and that was my choice. But the phones was not my choice. So that was their dad's choice. He's in technology, he's IT, and so that was his choice. And I've been completely against it. They had like Leapsters and uh, the Nintendo, not Game Boys. What are they called?
DS
Switch.
or the
Oh,
Switch.
yes.
Whatever they are. They had all that, and I was okay with that. But then when it came to like, I never even let them have an Xbox or a PlayStation because I saw what it did to my little brothers. It just made them weird. Like they just became so obsessed with it. and so I never allowed it. But then sometimes I think like maybe I confine them too much.
Right.
Maybe they didn't have as much exposure because I already knew what it was going to do to them.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of the self evaluation that I try to do in a lot of these situations. Just because it happened with your brother or other people that you've seen doesn't always necessarily mean it's going to happen. Um, if it only happens if we allow it to happen in the end, right? I think it's with a lot of things in life.
Mhm.
You know, you don't people only do things to you if you allow them to do them.
Correct.
Except for the first time, they're going to do it,
Right.
and if you put them in their place or
It's
whatever,
like
they're likely going to stop.
it's like when one of my students says, "Well, this kid keeps saying I'm gay and I'm gay." I'm like, "Well, if you're not gay, then you're not gonna like. It doesn't mean anything. Like it only means something if it's like actually true." And it's so hard as a parent to like feel that same way. Like it's only true if it's true, but when you're a parent, you just try to like make everything better, and you want to do everything better than what you had. And I really think that all of this has just all of the new age stuff has really just ruined our kids.
So, as a teacher, this is the perspective that I wanted to hear from you. You deal with a lot of different kids, right? You're a middle school teacher, right?
Yeah.
So in middle school, you're dealing with the age of the badass kids who are learning their ways and doing all these things, trying to be cool and prove their ways, prove their points, right? Do you sense the entitlement from the kids in school these days? Because kids coming from different types of households, right? Some of them have more things than others, and so you experience a lot of different things. What do you see?
Well, in my lower income families, I see that they're just trying to like make way, like they're just trying to pay bills, but they still have a way to get their kids phones, and they always have the nicest phones. And I think they're just trying to do better than what they grew up with, and I feel like that's what we're all trying to do. But when you look at like reading levels of these kids, like I know my kids are spoiled, but both my kids read on like high levels. Both, they're honor students, and so it's a little different when they come from low income. It really depends on how people grow up and their income levels, just to be honest. And that's the social work side of me and what I see in school.
Right.
I see broken homes. I see moms that are leaving the homes now and leaving daughters to be raised by men solely. I think that's a problem. I think boys being raised by moms solely is a problem.
They tend to be a little bit softer and know how to deal with certain things.
Those challenges.
Yep. They the men challenges in their life. So when it comes to that, do you feel over time how things have evolved that kids are have less respect for their parents than we did as we were growing up? So they have more authority over their life decisions than they should. What's the reality
Oh
of
yeah,
it
I
versus
definitely do.
do they overreact with some of these things?
Like even with my son, for instance, he says things jokingly that I would have never said to my mother. Like he'll say like, "Oh yeah, woman, go do that, woman," or my daughter might say, um, "Shut up," and she might be joking, but that's not a joke. And I think that they have like a different sense of entitlement now because like they definitely see things on like TikTok and Instagram because all these influencers are like
Oh
their
yeah,
age, and so I feel like they think it's okay. They think it's funny, but for me it feels so disrespectful.
and I don't think they
And I'm
understand it because they use it as a cop out too. Oh, it was just a joke. was just a joke, right? And that
Yeah.
goes back to we being too lenient on them because Jolie did this to us not long ago. It was a TikTok challenge. I'm sure you've seen it and you heard it where they go around and be like, "Oh, this food is good." The fuck? Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
And they think it's funny, and I'll laugh along with it. But then I think Jolie knows that there's a point where, okay, I'm done joking. It's over. Right? You're done. Stop. It was funny the first time, but stop doing it. Past that, it is disrespect, in my opinion. Right? So that's trying to find that balance of
Yeah.
let's meet kids in the middle, like where are they at versus where we are, because it is an evolution. It is a change over time. Right? We have to evolve to the changing times of technology and all that. Where's that balance, right? And we got to work with our kids to find that balance.
But if they don't understand, you can't just go anywhere and bust that out. You can't go out into public and be like, "This pizza is bomb, fuck."
Right.
Like, there's families sitting around there.
Exactly.
You're embarrassing yourself, and you're if it's your kid, that's
It's an
your
image on us.
dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
This
reflection of you.
this actually happened last night. We were eating dinner with some friends for one of her birthdays, and Jolie's over burping loud in a restaurant. I'm like, there's a time and place for it. There's a time and place not for it as well, and you should be able to differentiate that. I shouldn't have to tell you. And if you, it just comes out, no bullshit. I call bullshit on it because yeah, it can just come out, but if it keeps happening, you're doing it. Especially when you laugh, you catch yourself like now you're just being disrespectful. So it goes back to because I allowed it,
Right.
right? And I haven't been considerate enough to let her know, right? It-
There's a way to behave
yes.
inside the house and outside of the house,
You're
and
not.
when with company and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, you know how we go around in the dinner table. This is a dinner room, right?
right,
That's what we do. But when we go out, like, and some will say, well, if you did it down there, they wouldn't do it out there. Well, there's a difference, right?
there should be.
There should be,
You
yes.
should be able
You're
to be
not going to go to
comfortable.
Grant's house and burp at the table, and, tell a dirty joke or anything like that. There's a time and place for it. If you
Oh,
can't understand it, then maybe you don't need to do it at all. Sorry, go ahead.
oh yeah, I understand that firsthand. Like 100%. Like I have like my kids. Like sometimes I'm like, I sure hope you don't do that in front of people because like they know I find it disrespectful. So if you think I find it disrespectful and you still do it at my table, I can't imagine what you're doing at other people's tables or at their house.
Well, kind of maybe that is the thing. Don't do it here, you won't do it over there.
Right.
You know. It-
Oh, that's how I was raised.
yeah.
Mm-mm. My dad backhand me out of the chair,
If you
took my plate, and literally
said a dirty
emptied the
joke or
plate.
burped at the table, or
You're right. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm saying. Be too lenient, and that leniency has allowed and enabled that entitlement. You know what I mean? So Jolie and Landon, you're
But
watching
when
this. They're going to
at what
change.
point do they at what point though do we like stop saying it's leniency based off of what the laws are now, like what we can do and can't do?
Right.
Because we're younger, like my mom, like the police told me when I called the police on my mom, she could hit me under the neck and leave no bruises and it'd be fine. Nowadays, no, you can't do that.
I'm
You
not
can
talking
spank.
about knock your kids out of the chair.
I've tried spanking my kids personally. Jolie got more spankings than Landon ever did. She was more trying than Landon ever was. Spanking never worked. It wasn't. So spanking stopped at probably elementary school. I don't think they got any after that. And there wasn't even much because, like I said, it never worked.
Right.
All it was taking out aggression at that point.
Right.
And that's probably why, is because over time, you know, people were beating their kid, and it takes. They always say it takes one bad one to ruin everybody. Like, we can't spank our kids anymore because we want to beat the shit out of their kid really bad one day.
I mean,
You
and
know what I mean?
it happens worldwide, stuff like that. and we've learned over time that, like you said, it's not conducive to teach. It's not a very good educational tool, especially when they're crippled and like have to walk in and can't get to school and all this other stuff.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned the social media challenges and stuff. Kids will look at it and it's like, oh, it's a TikTok challenge. I'm going to go do that because I see somebody else doing it. Well,
Yeah, let's eat a Tide Pod.
I,
Who the hell thinks that's a good idea?
or going around the neighbors' houses and pulling on their door handle on cars to see who left their car open.
Oh yeah,
I mean, that's
that's how you get shot.
yep.
I
And
mean, that's the world we live in
we
today.
learned the hard way, luckily not by the kid being shot, but by the cops being called on him
Right.
and come over and like explaining like, what are you doing? What if it's a different person in a different neighborhood and you're doing this? I mean, you could have easily gotten
Well,
shot.
I have to explain that to my son because his best friends are black and they want to go like running around to neighbors' houses and stuff. And I'm not saying everybody is racist. I'm not saying that, but I'm like, if there's, I mean, these are not little boys. These are, you know, 15, 16-year-old boys. And I'm like, no, y'all go messing around in somebody's yard, you're probably going to get shot. Or like nobody's just calling the police anymore. And so whatever you saw on TikTok, don't do in somebody else's yard.
Yep. And that's the negative side of the social media. You know, and we'll get into that now because I don't want to too much about it. But they see these things, they feel they have to do them,
Right.
or they should be, could be, and to be cool to get that like or um, I think we're all guilty of that. We all will do things and post it. I mean, when we're doing our haunted house and stuff, we'll post things because we want people to see it. We're doing things that people like, oh, I want to do that too, and they'll mimic it, and you know. But I think, how do we give, how do we find that balance of giving our kids a better life versus enabling to be entitled? We don't want them to have a life we had, but we also don't want to turn them into little shitheads and entitled, you know, to the things in life. What do you? What is that balance? How do you find that balance?
We have to keep encouraging them to further education because nowadays you can't just have a high school diploma anymore. There is no high school diploma. Nobody's going to hire you on base to do those jobs where you just data entry, and nobody's doing that with a high school diploma anymore. The only way that these kids are going to get a higher like way of living, like a normal, like a standard of living, is if they have a degree, and that's just the way it is now. My husband, he is self-employed. He didn't have to go through all of the degrees that I had to get through for my career, but that's not a thing anymore. And so now these kids that have just given up on, or just even their parents have given up on education, they're now entitled because now the state's going to pay for them to live. The state's going to pay for their, you know, their education, their insurance, their
Like
food.
ham and cheese.
Which is a
Yeah,
horrible
and
thing.
so,
Yeah.
and that's what the
Absolutely not.
majority of the kids that I teach are live, like the kids that I teach, that's what they're basing their lives off of, is what they're seeing their parents do. And a lot of that is post COVID, but we know that was happening way before.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's where a lot of the changes, and go back to the political conversation, right? Um, Changes in policies and things like that. If there was more enforcement, welfare, and all that stuff. I grew up on welfare. My mom did. We went to the churches and got food and stuff like that. But those services are meant to be temporary, not permanent. If it's a permanent thing, then it's up organizations to help with those things, and help you through those situations. But if the kids aren't taught
Right.
to fight for it and earn it, all that stuff, they're not going to.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I think
No,
if it's a job, you have to pass a drug test. You should have to pass a drug test to get SNAP benefits and things like that. I think states should make that mandatory. If you think you're just going to get food stamps and your Medicaid and everything like that paid for, and you're sitting at home smoking pot, wearing brand new uh, Air Jordans, and eating lobster for dinner and stuff like
And you
that.
don't have a job.
Really?
That's a problem.
And you can smoke all the pot you want? No.
And that's what the kids see. That's what kids are
Exactly.
seeing. So not only are they on social media and wanting all these fancy things that they're seeing all these people on social media getting and having and doing and all that stuff, but now they're seeing their parents sitting at home, no education, no job, and still receiving benefits and still getting money and still, so it's just like that's the entitlement. Yes, I didn't spank my kids, so yeah, they probably are entitled in that sense, but they also know that they have to go to work or there's not going to be anything for them. Like,
I've seen how you get her raising age. She talks about those things, like they had her first job. She was like, my dad put money in the bank, he didn't read shit, because he didn't want me to just blow it on stupid stuff, and she's working now, and you know, so this is a good example. Lynn's probably gonna hate for this, but um, Ava got him a monitor for Christmas, right? And our cat broke it, jumped down on it and it fell and it crashed. It works, but it's got a crack in it, and he was so upset. He's like, I gotta pay Ava back. She worked hard for that for me. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I went into defense mode because I was like, when you broke my monitor, you didn't care, you know? You didn't care at all. Like it was just a throwaway thing. And he's like, no, but I'm like, so I just calm myself down a little bit. I'm like, Landon, you didn't break it, you know. Ava got it due for a gift, you know. And it was like, Landon, it's okay. I'm upset, but it's not your fault. So that goes back to the entitlement thing, It's just given, and they expect it to just be given. Now that you got to buy the salt,
Right.
you're starting to realize, like, whoa, we got to earn this thing.
Mhm. Yeah, what are they going to do when they go to get in their first apartment? Like that.
Right.
When I would
oh,
counsel and tell them, oh, you got to buy the salt, they'd look at you and go, what? Well, everywhere you've lived your whole life, there's been salt and spices and toilet paper and deodorant and all these things. No, you have to buy all that yourself.
Right.
So yeah, you're in charge of buying the salt.
And it said
yeah.
my audio is going to be choppy. I think I know what the problem is. Sorry about this. You want to continue on with this, JoJo? I'm trying to...
So another thing with observations, you believe kids today are genuinely different in terms of respect, independence, and discipline. What do you think, Miss Rich?
Can you say that again? I'm sorry. It broke up.
Do you believe kids today are genuinely different in terms of respect, independence, and discipline?
I think you said, sorry, I have my text to speech on because it's breaking up.
Do you feel that kids today are genuinely and actually different in terms of respect, independence, and discipline?
Oh yeah, I do because I see it like firsthand. Like I was a total rebel, and I know that I was, and I knew that my daughter was going to be something similar to me. But I also knew that like when with my mom, even though we were close, but we had our times, but I would never say a bad word in front of my mom. Even today, would not say a bad word in front of my mom. I got suspended from school one time for watching a fight, and my mom came up to the school and she whooped my ass in front of the principal and sent me back to class.
Mm-hmm.
Could I do that to my daughter today? No.
No.
They, it just wouldn't be allowed. I want to? Yes. They are different. It's a whole different level of respect. Um, I'm
for
sure
the
this
for
is
the
going to
cussing
be on
thing.
your page, so we can't really say too much. But I saw something in my daughter's purse, and I was like, that is so disrespectful that you have it so blatant in front of everybody, and especially me as your mom, and you just don't even care. And she's like, well, why are you looking in my purse? I'm like, because your room is dirty and it's sitting out. And so it's like the the messy room alone was disrespectful. The the stuff that she does is disrespectful. Like as far as like not even caring if I see it and it hurts my feelings, or it's just it's totally different. It's 100% different.
Yeah, I feel that, it's like we're not allowed to say anything about it. How dare we even mention anything about them not doing something they shouldn't be doing? You know what I mean? Who are you
Right.
to say anything to me? And that's what I feel.
Well,
That comes the entitlement thing, right?
I got told the other night, "What are you gonna do about it?"
Oh,
And then,
oh
of
no.
course, oh yeah, when I lost it, then I'm the bad guy. Then all of a
Oh
sudden,
yeah.
I'm the bad guy because I was asked what I'm gonna do about it, and my car door got slammed, and I'm like, "Excuse me?"
And
And
now, hey,
so then,
oh girl, mm-mm.
not sweet Ava, right?
Yeah, I got your the mentoric girl, like girl. Mm.
I know, and
Jolie will,
it's like,
get mad. They don't. That's the thing. You are being taken care of by us, living in our house. There are rules that you have to follow. There are things that you have to do. And I don't want to say like this for you to say otherwise. You have no say in it. But I don't want that sounds like dictatorship almost. However, I am the father of this house. I should be able to say, you know, don't do that. Well, why? Because I told you not to. Right? Is that even a thing anymore? Without back in the day, I couldn't say there was no buts or anything like that because I said, this is it, move on, right? On the other side of that, with Jolie specifically, Jolie will argue the point. However, she'll have a debate and an actual conversation with me. And where we end up sometimes is going against what I was saying, sometimes going against what she wants. But we're actually having that engaging conversation.
Right.
I think that's how we can play a role into some of this, part of the parenting styles, right? Not every parenting style fits in with every household either,
Right.
right? Some parents are okay with their kids drinking
Being the best
alcohol
friend,
and
right.
being your best, yeah, not being a parent, you're a best friend, right? And you don't want to upset your best friend, so you're not even going to tell them no or anything like that.
Right.
Um, so I'm personally, I try to evolve my parenting style, and Amanda and I are actually working a lot better together now with how we do things. We back each other up a lot more than we used to in the past, because we both had them about things and we wanted a way, and that doesn't work if you're not agreeing with people that are parenting together. Your kids are going to see that as well, and they're going to play it against you,
Right.
right? And the kids are very good at that. So
And when dads know, they run to mom, and if mom's like, well, I see your side of it, yeah, I'll let you go. Well, now you just made dad look like an asshole.
right. Or, well, your daddy said, well, now you're making me look like the bad guy.
Right.
How about we talked about it, or what does your mama say? Or what does your dad say?
Let us talk together and figure that out, and we'll come back to you with our decision.
Right. Man, if you hear me, this
And the
last
craziest
about
thing is that they always know what is already expected of them, even though they go and ask back and forth. Like,
yeah, actually,
Just to test the limits.
I got into a heated debate one week with Amanda and Jolie about just that, right? Jolie asked if her boyfriend can spend the night one night, and I'm like, I felt disrespected. Like, you're 16 years old. Who the fuck are you to
yeah.
ask me if your boyfriend can spend the night, like that's how I felt. I felt disrespected. I would have never even thought of asking my parents that.
Exactly.
Like that's just
Exactly.
no. You're well, I understand you're 16. I understand young love, but staying the night.
Mm.
That's a like, and the conversations went on and on and on and on because I just felt disrespected, right? And it was one of those times where Matt and I didn't get agree on the situation, and in the end, I did overreact because I was heated. I was the father of a 16-year-old daughter who just asked if her boyfriend could spend the night. Like, what the
But is
hell?
it
No.
overreacting?
Well,
Because I don't feel like, I mean, I don't know what the situation was, but it's kind of like me seeing the inside of Ava's purse because it was just so wide open and she's just so messy, and I require her to keep her room clean. And just the blatant disrespect, like, that's not going to be a thing. You're going to play your parents against each other by saying that,
right.
by even asking that. You're playing the parents against each other, and that's what we're dealing with, like, right now at the height of our teenager, both of their growth, is that they are playing us so apart.
Right.
Like, even if we don't agree on certain things that have to do with our marriage and our lives and our adulthood, they are playing us separately. Like, not to ask your dad that. Why would you ask me? Or not to ask me that. Why would you ask your dad?
Because it's going to upset the other one, and they're going to be against each other, and they're going to give in at some point.
Mhm.
Somebody's going to give in, you know, and that's how I feel. It happens often, right? And that goes back to the whole they are the way they are. But in the end, if we think about it, because we've allowed it,
Mhm.
and that's my personal opinion, we've allowed it for multiple reasons,
Oh
right?
yeah.
One, is it really that big of a deal? Argue the point with them. Two, like they're never going to give up, or three, there's just too much going on. We can't handle it right now. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much going on in life,
Yeah.
and the kids we've allowed it, and they're gonna if you allow it once, they're gonna want it again. You heard the whole thing, you give them an inch, they want a mile,
Yeah.
right? They're gonna push the limits, and they're gonna push more and more and more if you allow them to,
Mhm.
right?
And they're going to
So now we
find you
just have
at your
all that.
weakest points too, like when you're living life, and they're going to come in and, like, swoop in and ask you some crazy stuff or do something crazy, knowing that you're at your lowest point in your adult life. Like, that's how I feel.
I wish we can just all our kids are actually they're good kids,
Mhm.
right? They're just being kids, and they're only again doing
They
what we've
are.
allowed them to do, um, and they're going to turn out to be great people. You know, what we're doing now is to teach them. My kids tell me all the time, you don't. Every conversation doesn't have to be a lecture, doesn't have to be a life lesson. Well, it kind of does
Mhm.
because that's what my job is. That's what my role is as your father. That's what I'm here for, right? And if you're a friend of my kids, you're gonna have the same type of feedback from me
Right.
because Wendy, if you're watching, you were there for me, giving me the feedback that you would have given your own kids, right? Because you want to see them grow up to be good and a contributor to society, right? And that's our intention, right? I lost my train of thought on that one for a little bit. Um, you already touched a little bit about the cultural differences, the low income families and things like that. When parents are involved and they have no guidance at all, the kids have no guidance, they will lose respect and for authority, at least because they have no authority at home, right? Or if they see their parents taking advantage of certain situations, that's what they're going to learn, that's what they're going to do,
Yeah.
right? They're going to push some to others, like the influence, right? Life influences have a major role in this.
Well, I look at it like this too. As babies into small children and stuff, that they're impressionable all through their growing life, right? But children are not born racist. Children are not born to hate.
Nope.
They know nothing about those things. They're taught these things.
You're a product of your environment.
And
Yeah.
the people that are taking care of you in that environment, that's who's going to teach them how to be resilient. That's who's going to teach them how to, when the time comes, you'll be able to buy the salt. You're going to be able to depend on yourself.
Right.
And have to depend on others or the government or whatever.
Yep. All right. Before we move on to the next things, actually, it looks like we're towards the end. Do you have anything else to provide, Trish, towards this? I appreciate you joining. I texted Ava earlier, and she's like, I don't know if Mama want to do it. She's kind of shy. But I figured you as a teacher would have some good feedback into this, and you have. I appreciate it. But the
No,
intention.
I don't have anything else, but yeah, I am not a public speaker, so everything just runs through my brain and it just comes out.
Well, and that's what this is. This is just having a
Conversation.
conversation, however it comes out. Like we jump all around and everything, but that's how conversations happen. I have like a layout, but I'm jumping all around between it just to pull myself back in. But these conversations are just that, conversations, right? They're opinions, and it's the courage to converse about things that a lot of people don't like to talk about. They'll talk about them in small circles and things, but they won't talk about them quickly because they're afraid of the judgment. They're afraid of people saying something bad about them, or and I don't care because
Yeah, I
if
agree.
someone has to judge me, okay, that's their problem, not mine.
That's right.
Right? That's one thing I kind of certainly understand a few years ago. I understand the difference between my problem and other people's problems. It used to be very difficult. It's a lot easier now.
You can't control other people's behaviors,
Right.
but you can control how you react to them.
Right. And the goal of this podcast is to strike up the conversations. We've discussed this. We've had this is what third one, fourth one now. I think after like the fifth topic, we're gonna have this. The following topic will be circle back to all the previous ones we had because there's a lot of conversation that happens after each podcast. Right, so we want to circle back and close some of those gaps. Whether or not it's a full hour, whatever, you're just going to talk until there's nothing else to talk about with those other topics. But with every topic we do have a song, and we've mentioned every time. I'd like everybody to take the time to listen to the song because it's very relevant to the topic, right? And today's call to action. I want to hear what everybody has to think about this. Everybody has an opinion. Not everybody's, willing to open up and talk about it. And someone posted on here, spankings are traumatic. That's my son. Spankings are traumatic. Well, wait till you get one. I'll bring my bell phone. But this conversation will bring up other conversations, after this. And what I'd like everybody to do is come back to the future conversation and talk about these things that you think about afterwards. Because a lot of people are coming to me directly. I'd like to have these conversations with everybody, right? Because if we can share each other's thoughts and understand where each other is coming from, then it can help change the way. It might help people convinced to think differently, right? It might, not that you want to change somebody's mind or change the way somebody thinks. However, if you can at least try to understand, then maybe it'll help the world a little bit. Like we said before, we're going to solve hunger. No, that doesn't mean we can't try to make a small difference.
If everybody did a little every day,
right,
this world would be such a much better place.
So
for generations to come.
Right. On social media, YouTube, Facebook, share your thoughts. Are your kids spoiled? Are other kids spoiled? Is it the norm? Is it a widespread thing, or is it just a local thing that we're all thinking that we're crazy, and our kids are spoiled and they have respect for authority anymore? Share those things. Share us your opinions and your experiences about how you parent, what works, what doesn't work. The struggles that you've had, because sometimes talking about struggles can help us evolve ourselves. I want to thank everybody for joining. Jojo, do you have anything else to talk about?
No,
Anything
I'm just grateful that everybody was watching with us.
Yes, sir.
And thank you so much, Miss Chris.
All right. Remember, every generation faces its own challenges. We all understand that things do evolve. Along with challenges, some opportunities, learning opportunities, learning experiences, right? That's what we should focus on, right? Just because it is the way it is today because of certain influences doesn't mean that we can't take those influences and make a change for the better. Let's focus on understanding, supporting each other, and navigate all the complexities throughout our life. And the final thing I wanted to say is children are the product of the environment that we just mentioned that, right? They aren't born racist.
Right.
They aren't born
hateful.
They are taught that way, whether it's through the actions of the family, through the actions of the environment that they are in, because of maybe they don't have a parent, but are raised around aunts and uncles who are into drugs and gangs or something like that. That is their environment.
Right.
So they're learning these things, right? And some of the behavior of our kids, who aren't in those bad environments, we've allowed these things, right? So maybe we need to take a self-evaluation. What are we allowing our kids to get away with? Maybe we are the cause of these problems, these so-called problems.
Or challenges.
Right. They are challenges, 100%. So let's lead. Let's lead with courage, care, consistency. Consistency is key. Again, I'd like everybody to listen to the song. It's very relevant, as every song that we have at the end of each podcast. Listen to the disclaimer. We are not professionals.
Nope.
I'm a professional, but I'm not a counselor. I'm a professional in the IT world. Right? So if you're having problems, if we struck any kind of, I just know my face is over there too. Oops. If this conversation struck any kind of traumatic issues or anything like that, there is help out there. I'll flash something up there on the screen for you to get a number. Reach out. I'm here if anybody who wants to talk. I've had people there for me when I needed to talk, and sometimes all people need is someone to sit there, listen, and understand. Just be there.
Absolutely.
So, toodaloo. Y'all have a good night, and we'll talk to you later.
Thank you for joining us here on Courage to Converse. Our intention is to discuss tough topics, reflect on personal experiences, and explore paths for growth and understanding. I want to acknowledge that some of these conversations may have touched on sensitive or challenging issues. This podcast is not intended as a substitute for professional advice or support. If you or someone you know is struggling, resources are available to help. In the U.S., you can call or text 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, or text HOME to 741741 to reach the crisis text line. Remember, our goal here is to spark meaningful conversations while fostering respect, understanding, and personal growth. See you next time.
They follow trails we leave behind, footsteps pressed into the sands of time. Did we show them strength or teach them fear? Are they prepared for the storm when it's near? Built by hands, shaped by hearts, every decision leaves its mark. Did we give too much? Did we let them stray? Or did we guide them the right way? They stumble, fall, but do they rise? Have we prepared them for the fight? Do they see the value of the climb? Or feel entitled to their place in line? It's not the gifts, but the lessons shared. Not just the love, but the times we cared. Building strength takes time to show. Like seeds we plant, like rivers flow. Built by hands, shaped by hearts, every decision leaves its mark. Did we give too much? Did we let them stray? Or did we guide them the right way? Built by hands, shaped by hearts, every decision leaves leaves its mark? Did we give too much? Did we let them stray? Or did we guide them the right way? We paved the way, but they must run. Under the moon, under the sun, built by hands but free to grow. They'll find their path, they'll make their flow. They follow trails we leave behind, footsteps pressed into the sands of time. Did we show them strength or teach them fear? Are they prepared for the storm when it's near?